Alright, we're going to install a front wheel on a Suzuki v-strom. So the first thing you're going to want to do is clean off the axle. I'm very fortunate with this bike. This was the first tire change, so the axle's like brand new. So I'm putting a light coat of marine grease. I sometimes get questions what grease I'm using. This is actually Lubrimatic marine grease, anti-corrosion bearing grease. I use marine grease because if you're riding around in the rain, it's going to protect your seals, your bearing, your axle from any water and grime that might get past the seal. So I roll the wheel into place. There's a little cover that goes on the left side of the wheel, and then the right side of the wheel has a little like bearing spacer in there. So we're going to clean that off, and then I put a light coat of grease on the seal itself. So I just stick a light coat of grease in there on the seal, and then I'm going to stick that little spacer in there. Again, we can get into grease arguments, but you know, if you're changing out your tires every 3, 4, 5, 6,000 miles, marine grease is the way to go, especially if you're on like an adventure bike like this one where you might be doing some off-road. You don't need the high-speed, high-performance greases, graphite greases. You just need to protect everything from water, dirt, and debris. You know, next time you come in and I change out your tires, I'm going to be cleaning off the old grease and putting new grease on anyway. So grease is grease is grease. It's kind of like that oil argument that everybody has on the forums. Anyway, we're tightening down the sprocket. I'm sorry, we're tightening down the front shaft. Now we're putting a torque wrench on it, and we're going to torque this to spec. You can get your torque specifications in your owner's manual. I don't typically give out torque specs in my videos because this v-strom might be a little bit different than a 10-year-old v-strom. Now we're going to put our calipers on. Let's check our brake pads. Always check your brake pads when you have the front wheel off or the rear wheel off. Make sure that you have plenty of brake pad left. It's a good time to replace your brake pads while you have the bike apart. So once we have the calipers back in place, we're going to go ahead and tighten down those bolts and torque them at the same time. So I always like to torque each bolt twice just to make sure. Now we jump over to the right side. We're going to do the same thing over here on the right side. So we just slide our caliper on. Don't forget to inspect your brake pads. And then we just tighten these bolts down. Get them as much as you can finger tight, and then go ahead and hook your wrench up to them and get them tightened down. I'm using a snap-on ratchet torque wrench. So this way I can quickly ratchet down these bolts and then torque them into place. And again, I like to check the torque twice. So with the brake calipers on, we're going to come back around, drop the bike, We're going to put our ABS or traction control sensor back onto the front wheel. You probably don't have to remove this, but I remove it just for safety. It's only one bolt. If you bump it or crack it while you're removing the front wheel, it could be a fairly expensive fix. So better to be safe than sorry. And we're going to put a torque on that. And then once we got this all together, let's make sure that we pump up our front brake. Last thing we want is our friend to jump out on the road and not have any brakes available. Thanks for watching my video.